is our 2016 model Mazda 6. As you can see, it's red, and you can see it's a station wagon. This is the GT model, which is the third from the bottom or the second from the top of the range, depending on whether you're a glass half empty or a glass half full kind of person. The bottom one is a Sport, which has cloth seats, but it's still pretty well equipped. The next one up is the Touring, which is leather seats and front parking sensors and a better sound system. This one, the GT, has got a sunroof and heated seats and electric seats, which are keyed to the key fobs. And one of the major differences, it's got 19-inch wheels rather than 17-inch, which is a mixed blessing. I love them, but some people prefer the 17s because they're a bit less easily damaged. This is what our wheels look like when we first got it. Anyway, we had them refinished in shadow chrome. I'll put a link in the description below to the people who did it. We're really happy with the outcome. The top of the range model is the Atenza, which adds in adaptive cruise control and Napa leather, some other stuff too. I'll put a link to the original brochure for this car in the description below so you can look up the exact specs if you're interested in that. All of the four trim levels came as a sedan or a wagon. I like the look of the wagon better. It has a shorter wheelbase than the sedan, weirdly. I think this is because the wagon was aimed at the European market, where handling was a priority, and the sedan was aimed at the US market, where rear legroom was more of a priority. Anyway, I'm sure they all handle nicely. Read the reviews, but maybe the wagon has the edge. Soul red was a popular colour. Anyway, the cat likes it. These are the colours that were available. If you don't like the one you've got, you can always get the car wrapped, or use the magic finger. If you can find one without any supermarket dings, you've probably found one that's never been in a supermarket car park, but if they have been looked after, then they'll probably still look good. I think the original owner loved this one because it's got bonnet protector, it had headlight protectors, it's got little leather pouches for the key fobs, coloured striker plates and boot mat and floor mats, and pretty much every accessory you could think of. This one is 8 years old with 120,000 kilometres. The interior looks and feels new. The leather on the driver's side bolsters got some creasing in it, but it's leather, it does that. The car's roomy enough to carry 4 grown-ups and their stuff, and it fits 2 car seats comfortably. The boot's wide enough for golf clubs, which is cool. And it's got hooks in it to stop shopping bags sliding around. It's also got a tricky cargo blind that rises with the tailgate, which you can remove. There are levers to release the rear seat squabs, which fold flat. The seat heating in the front works a treat, and it's got 2-zone climate control with a rear outlet. All in all, it's a pretty comfy place to be. It doesn't rattle, and everything seems to fit together pretty well. Mazdas aren't the quietest cars, but this one's reasonable, especially compared to earlier ones. Road noise is okay at 110 km an hour. Keeping the sunroof blind shut helps that a bit. There's a standard set of analogue instruments, minus a temperature gauge. It makes do with a light. The trip computer covers the usual things, fuel consumption, average speed and so on. And it seems quite accurate. The GT and the Atenza have a head-up display. They call it an active driving display, with a plastic tab that folds out of the top of the instrument binnacle, displays speed and some navigation information. It works well even when you're wearing polarising sunglasses. Actually, I think the later ones are dispensed with the tab, and just project onto the windscreen, and they're not so great in this regard. All the trim levels except the Sport have a Bose branded sound system with heaps of speakers. It works fine. The infotainment screen sits proud of the dashboard and only works as a touchscreen while the car's not moving. Otherwise, you have to control it with a wheel on the console. I've seen similar ones in other brands. At first you'll probably not like it, but once you've had it for a while it becomes muscle memory. It works fine. The MZD standard infotainment system isn't terrible. It looks and works the same in all Mazdas that have this same pop-up screen. It has built-in sat-nav. The problem with that is that it has to be updated manually. Simple enough to do, but not particularly cheap. The map data is contained on an SD card you can easily remove from the centre console. There's plenty of YouTube help on how to do this. I'll put a link in the description. There is no smartphone mirroring. However, if your car has this screen, it's possible to upgrade it to enable Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You can get Mazda to do this for a cost of around $550, I think. If you're handy, you can save yourself a few $100s and do it yourself. You need to replace the media hub, which lives in the centre console, and run 2 new cables to the back of the infotainment screen. Here's a few pictures of how I did it. You can see I have the laptop on the seat with Dr. Jake's instructions to guide me. Again, I'll provide a link. He's great. You'll need to buy a new media hub. I got one with a USB-C plug because I read it's a fast charger, and it is. It charges fast. Again, link below. Touchscreen works with Apple CarPlay when you're stationary, but not Android Auto. You always have to use the wheel for it. And a disclaimer, follow the instructions very carefully. The car's firmware needs to be a late version. It must start with the number 70 or higher. If you don't do this, you're in grave danger of turning your whole infotainment system into a brick. So, what's it like to drive? I would think better than you would expect, given that it's a pretty standard kind of a specification for a medium-sized sedan or wagon of its age. 138 kilowatts, 250 newton meters of torque, naturally aspirated 2.5 litre 4-cylinder engine mounted sideways and front-wheel drive. But actually, it seems to do better than what you might expect for its specifications. So yes, I'd expect it not to be all that exciting, but it drives very nicely, handles well, flat round the corners, no torque steer. It's satisfying and fun, a really fun car to drive. So I think, yeah, I've lucked out with this car. It has a 6-speed torque converter automatic with a sport button on it, which seems to change the mapping of the throttle and also the transmission shift points. You would kind of hope that there would be something in between the regular and the sport mode, because it does turn the car kind of quite aggressive. So what I tend to do is just drive it normally, just not on sport mode, but when I'm on a windy kind of back road thing, just switch it to sport for the corners, which seems to work okay. It has paddle shifters behind the steering wheel, which I find really useful on a windy road. Some people think that they're a waste of time, but they're there. You don't have to use them if you don't want to. There's also a manual mode on the transmission, which you just select by moving the gear selector to the side. But yeah, the transmission, as far as I'm concerned, works a treat. From 2018, there was a turbocharged engine offered on the top 2 trim levels, the Atenza and the GT. Really up to you as to whether you want to spend the extra money to get that bit of extra performance, an extra 30 kilowatts, and spend the extra money on the fuel. But I thought I did until I bought this car. But I find that the performance of just the naturally aspirated engine is really more than adequate. I took this video quite legally, I have to say, and when I was editing it, and apologies for the quality by the way, I put a clock over the top of it and started the clock exactly when the revs started to rise on the tacho, and give you an idea of what its 0 to 100 time is. And it's not, you know, I can't say it's 100% accurate, and it's not a Tesla, but it surprised me with how well it accelerates, and it seems equally lively in the mid-range, overtaking. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So, you found one of these cars, you really like it, it's in great condition, but it's suspiciously cheap. The reason for that might be that it's a diesel. So the forums are pretty unkind to the Mazda diesel engines. I'm not going to say anything about it because I'm not a mechanic, but for that reason they generally sell for less money than the petrol ones, even though they're torquey, they drive nicely, and they were more expensive when they were new. But if you have found a diesel and you really like it, can I suggest you just do your homework first? So, the title of the video is, should I buy a used Mazda 6? Well, I don't know. I can't make up your mind for you, but you've had a look at what I think of this one, and I've certainly been happy with it. What you need to look out for? Well, probably don't get a diesel. Probably make sure that the paint's in really good condition. Car's being kept inside is really good, and most important of all, make sure that your service history is well documented and up to date. But go for it. I love it. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this car's got great headlights. The low beams follow the steering around corners. Anyway, bye.